Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 2, would like to present our discussion about topic 2, connection between the material. Our members consist of Alfio Dwi Indahsari, Nabila Nur Fajriah, and Rahmadian Harianti. Okay, first we come to the definition of assessment. What is assessment? Assessment is a process of obtaining data or information from the learning process and providing feedback to the teachers and students. Next, we go on to the goals of assessment. There are several of assessment goals. The first is, assessment is to measure the learning achievement. The second is, assessment is to provide feedback. The third is, assessment is for guiding the learning process. Next, assessment is for identifying learning needs. After that, assessment is for assessing higher level skills. And then, assessment is for evaluating the effectiveness of teaching methods. And the last is, assessment is for increasing learning motivation and providing information for decision making.
Types of assessment. There are three types of assessment. The first is diagnostic assessment. This assessment is carried out before learning begins to determine the ability and basic knowledge of students about the material to be learned. The example is of pre-test and oral questions. The second is formative assessment. This assessment is carried during the learning process to monitor student learning progress continuously. This assessment is useful to determine the extent to which students understand the material being studied. For example, is daily assessment, quiz, and presentation. The third is summative assessment. This assessment is carried out after the learning period evaluate the aim of whether the learning has been active. The results of summative assessment are usually used to give a final grade. The example is a final test. Then, learning needs. Based on the fact in the field, learning needs are divided into two, such as the needs of students and teachers. The first is students' needs. Student needs found in the field are facilities for learning, such as in-focus and audio speakers. Then, the need of students in their learning are transparency of aspect assessed in formative assessment learning in the form of written tests. The second is teacher needs. The needs of teachers that we get in the field are adequate facilities for teaching such as in-focus and audio speakers. Furthermore, teachers need the result of the diagnostic assessment from the counseling teachers.
Format. The assessment formats used in the teaching module are diagnostic, formative, and summative. The diagnostic assessment includes pre-test, non-cognitive assessment, and cognitive assessments using instruments such as direct questions and the Aku Pintar application. The formative assessment consists of observation sheets, oral tests, and written tests, with the written test taking the form of LKPD sheets. The summative assessment includes observation sheets, oral tests, and written tests, also in the form of LKPD sheets. Based on observations in our school, we found that teachers are using diagnostic assessments, including pre-test, cognitive assessment, and non-cognitive assessments, as well as formative assessments in the form of observation sheets, oral tests, and written tests. Summative assessments will be conducted at the end and mid-semester. For the material, the module used descriptive text for class 10 PACE E. The learning materials used in assessments must be derived from the teaching materials that have been utilized throughout the learning process, such as textbooks, worksheets, or other educational resources. This ensures alignment between what is taught and what is tested. In the teaching module at the school, the learning materials are sourced from LKPD as well as several printed books. During the learning process in the field, it was found that the material used consists of descriptive text. For the learning objective of reading aloud, the focus is on practicing reading descriptive text with an emphasis on pronunciation and intonation. For the learning objective of identifying the main idea, students are asked to identify the main idea of each paragraph and engage in group discussions. For the learning objective of finding detailed information, students must uncover both explicit and implicit information from the descriptive text. The next is reflection. Based on field observations, it's shown that in informative assessment, both oral and written tests administered by teachers do not clearly outline the assessment criteria. This lack of clarity causes students to struggle with understanding the evaluation criteria and feel unfairly judged if they do not know what is expected. Consequently, this affects students' motivation to learn. Thus, students need to be informed about the aspects that are assessed in both oral and written tests. As an initial assessment for learning, there is involvement from the guidance counselor or BK to provide information on the results of the diagnostic assessment conducted using the Aku Pintar application. In practice, however, the guidance counselor hasn't shared the results of this assessment even after the lessons have taken place. This has led to challenges for teachers in diagnosing students' initial abilities. Therefore, collaboration from all parties involved, particularly the guidance counselor, is essential to successfully implement the diagnostic assessment. That's all for our presentation. Thank you so much.